I'm not the type to usually post online, but what happened to me a few months ago still messes with my head, and I figured if someone else out there is thinking of hiring help through Craigslist, they should hear this first. My name's Anthony. I'm 32, recently divorced, and I live alone in a small, single-level rental house on the outskirts of Mesa, Arizona. After the split, the house got neglected fast. Clutter everywhere, boxes I never unpacked, random stuff I told myself I'd deal with eventually. One Sunday afternoon, fed up and feeling a little pathetic, I sat on the couch, surrounded by empty takeout containers, and decided it was time to at least pretend I had my life together. I grabbed my phone and posted a quick ad. Looking for a same-day cleaner. House is small, nothing crazy. Cash payment. About 20 minutes later, I got a reply. It was short. I can be there within the hour. $80 flat rate. Basic cleaning. All supplies included. The guy didn't give a name, just signed off as professional cleaner. Reliable, discreet. I should have been more cautious. No business name, no reviews, no photo. But I was desperate, honestly. I replied with my address, and he confirmed, saying, "See you in 45 minds." Sure enough, almost on the dot, a man showed up at my door wearing a dark blue shirt with a patch that said, "Clean Pro," black slacks, and holding a plastic bin with what looked like basic cleaning supplies. Spray bottles, rags, a dustpan. He looked normal. Mid-40s maybe, short buzz cut, pale skin, tall but not lanky. Nothing about him screamed danger. I let him in, gave a quick tour, and he nodded silently, barely reacting. Didn't talk much at all, which was honestly fine with me. I told him I'd be in the living room catching up on emails and just let him do his thing. 15 minutes passed. I remember glancing at the time because the guy was oddly quiet. No sounds of vacuuming, no running water, just occasional soft footsteps. Then my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my bank app. Suspicious activity. Attempted withdrawal, $600. Flagged. I felt my chest tighten immediately. I hadn't left my wallet anywhere visible. It was inside my bedroom drawer. Trying to play it cool, I told the guy, "Hey man, I just need to step outside for a minute. Something with my landlord." He didn't respond, just kept wiping down the kitchen counter. I walked outside and pulled up the footage from my front door camera. There was no car, no van, nothing. The guy had walked straight up from the street, not even from the sidewalk. Just appeared from the side like he'd been waiting for me to open the door. I rewound the footage twice to be sure. My stomach dropped. Something was seriously off. I went back inside, heart racing. I could feel that shift in the air, that gut feeling when you realize you've made a mistake that might actually cost you something. I stood in the hallway for a second, watching him. He had moved into the living room and was bent over near the side table, the one where I usually charge my phone and toss my keys. But the thing is, I'd already seen that table was clean. He wasn't wiping it down. He was looking through the drawers. I stepped closer and said, louder this time, "Hey man, you find everything okay?" He stood up slowly, turned toward me, and smiled. That was the first time I saw his teeth. Crooked, yellowed, like he hadn't smiled in years. His eyes didn't match the smile at all. They were empty. Before I could say anything else, he took a step toward me and, in one quick motion, pulled a small knife from his pocket. Not a big one, just one of those foldable box cutter types, but sharp enough. "Wallet?" he said. No emotion in his voice, no panic, no shouting. Just that one word, like he'd done this before. My body reacted before my brain did. I backed up, turned, and sprinted down the hall toward the bathroom, slamming the door shut and locking it behind me. I didn't even realize I was yelling until I heard myself scream. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 with shaking fingers, trying to stay quiet while whispering to the operator that someone was inside my house with a knife. The scariest part? He didn't chase me. He didn't even try to break the door. I heard him walking, calm, slow, through the hallway, pausing, then moving again, opening drawers, rummaging through the kitchen. At one point I heard him whistling. No rhythm, just random notes. That made my skin crawl more than anything. I crouched in the corner of the bathroom with my back against the door, holding the lock like it would help, and just waited. The dispatcher stayed on the line, asking me to stay calm, telling me officers were on their way. Every sound in that moment felt magnified. The creak of the floorboards, the soft shuffle of his shoes, my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. It felt like forever, but the police arrived in less than 10 minutes. I heard the knock, then a loud bang as they forced the front door open. The guy tried to run. I heard the chaos through the walls, but they caught him before he made it past the front yard. When I finally opened the bathroom door, one of the officers was standing right there, hand on his holster, asking if I was hurt. I said no, just shaken. Another officer was already putting the guy in cuffs outside. I caught a glimpse through the window. He was still calm, still smiling that same awful smile. I don't know what freaked me out more, the knife or how casual he was through the whole thing. After giving my statement, I sat on the front steps with a blanket the paramedics gave me, just staring at the street. A neighbor I barely knew came over and asked what happened. I couldn't even answer. I was still processing the fact that if I hadn't checked that camera when I did, I might have handed over my wallet without realizing who I'd let into my house. One of the officers came back over and asked if I'd posted anything online about needing help. I told him about the Craigslist ad. His face tightened, like he'd heard that before. He said this wasn't the first report like this in the past week. Same setup, single men, living alone, all hiring someone through Craigslist for housework. The attacker always used a fake name and wore a uniform that looked official enough. No car, always on foot. They later confirmed that he'd hit at least 3 other homes before mine. One of them had security footage showing him walking around the neighborhood an hour before knocking. Just scouting, like a predator waiting for someone to let their guard down. The crazy part? He had no criminal record. Nothing. Just a string of odd jobs in different towns and a couple of fake business names linked to burner phones. They said he was probably couch surfing, sleeping in abandoned houses, or even squatting in empty rentals while using the fake cleaning gig to case new targets. One officer called him a chameleon. Said guys like that don't just stop, they get better at hiding. It took me a while to feel normal again in that house. For the first few weeks I couldn't sleep without a light on. I changed all the locks, installed more cameras, and stopped answering the door unless I knew exactly who was on the other side. Even now, if I hear someone walking too slowly outside, I freeze up a little. What messes with me the most is how casual it all felt at the start. No forced entry, no mask, no threats. Just a man with a uniform and a lie, stepping into my space like it was nothing. And if I hadn't gotten that bank notification when I did, I genuinely don't know how far it would have gone. I haven't used Craigslist since. I don't think I ever will. And if someone reading this is thinking about hiring someone random online, especially if you live alone, don't. Pay the extra $20 for someone with a real business. Check references. If they don't have a car, don't even open the door. That's the part that haunts me. How easy it was for him to get in. Just a message. Just a smile. Just a uniform. And I was ready to hand him the keys to my whole life. I'm not really the type to share stuff like this online, but after what happened a few months ago, I still can't sleep properly, and maybe writing it down will help. My name's Olivia. I'm 34, and I live alone with my daughter Emily in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Nothing fancy, It's a single-level house with only one floor, no second story, tucked at the end of a small cul-de-sac. I moved here after my divorce to start over somewhere more peaceful, and for the most part, it had been. That Sunday started like any other. I was in the kitchen with Emily, who's 8, and we were trying a new recipe from her favorite YouTube cooking channel. She was laughing at the way I kept messing up the pancake flips. It was just a normal day. I miss that feeling now. It was around 6:30 p.m. when it happened. The sun hadn't set yet, but the shadows were starting to stretch out across the backyard. We were halfway through cooking dinner when we heard it. This loud, aggressive banging on the front door. Not a knock, not even close. It sounded like someone was trying to break it down. I froze, spatula in one hand, and looked at Emily. She went quiet instantly. Something about the force of that pounding didn't feel right. It was too urgent, too angry. I wasn't expecting anyone. No one ever just shows up at my place. I told Emily to stay in the kitchen and walked to the door, heart already racing. When I asked who it was, a man's voice shouted back, "Food delivery!" I remember the exact way he said it, impatient, like I was being difficult. I told him we didn't order anything. He insisted I did, said it was already paid for. His tone shifted fast, from fake friendly to annoyed, to something almost threatening. I asked him which restaurant the order was from, and he just repeated louder, "Open the damn door, ma'am. It's already here." That's when I looked through the peephole. He was standing with a brown paper bag in one hand, no visible logo on it, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. No delivery uniform, no badge, not even a thermal bag. He wasn't from DoorDash. He wasn't from anywhere. I told him again we didn't order anything and that he had the wrong house. His response? He kicked the door. Hard. I jumped back. Emily screamed from the kitchen. I yelled that I was calling the police, but he didn't leave. He kicked again. The wood cracked. I'd never felt panic like that before. It wasn't the kind that freezes you. It was the kind that moves you. I ran back to Emily, shoved her into the pantry, and whispered for her to stay quiet no matter what. Then I grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter, the big one with the black handle that I rarely use. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I positioned myself between the front door and where Emily was hiding. I was alone, terrified, but I knew one thing. He was not going to get to her. The moment the door actually burst open felt like it happened in slow motion. The hinges cracked, the wood splintered, and he stepped inside like he'd done it before. Not clumsy, not in a rush, just calculated. He was average height, maybe mid-30s, pale skin, patchy beard and dark eyes that never stopped scanning the room. He didn't even look at me right away. His eyes went past me, toward the kitchen, like he was already imagining where to go next. I stood there with the knife raised, breathing so loud I was sure he could hear my heart pounding from across the room. "You need to leave. Now," I said, trying to make my voice sound firm. It cracked anyway. He paused when he saw the knife. That was the first and only time he looked at me directly, and smiled. Not a nervous smile. A twisted one, like he was amused. He held up the fake delivery bag like it meant something, like it was supposed to justify all this. Then he dropped it right on the floor and started walking toward me. I backed up fast, yelling again that I had called the police. That wasn't true yet, but I needed to buy time. I kept thinking about Emily, whether she was staying quiet like I told her, whether he could hear her breathing from the pantry. I raised the knife higher. My hand was slick with sweat. He took one more step and I lunged forward, not to stab him, just to make him flinch, to show him I wasn't bluffing. And it worked. He stopped. That smile disappeared. For a second, it was like he wasn't expecting me to fight back. Like maybe the people he tried this with before didn't. He stepped back, muttered something under his breath that I couldn't understand, and then turned around and ran out the door. No rush, no panic, just gone. I locked the door again as best as I could, then dropped the knife and ran to the pantry. Emily was curled up on the floor, shaking. I held her so tight I could feel her ribs pressing into mine. I finally managed to call the police, still barely able to string words together. When they arrived, I told them everything. The description, the fake food delivery, the voice, the way he forced his way in. One of my neighbors across the street, Mr. Harris, a retired vet who always has a camera on his porch, heard the sirens and came over. He checked his camera footage, and sure enough, there the guy was. The same hoodie, the same bag, approaching my house and pacing around for a few minutes before knocking. The footage also showed something worse. He'd been on the block before, multiple times that week. Always walking past houses, always carrying the same nondescript bag. He'd been watching us. The police took the footage right away and said they'd look into it, but I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house made me jump. Emily slept in my bed, clutching her stuffed fox so tight its seams stretched. I spent most of the night replaying everything in my head. His expression, the force in his voice, the moment he smiled when he saw me holding the knife. I kept wondering, what if I hadn't grabbed that knife? What if I had hesitated? What if he'd gotten to Emily before I reacted? The what-ifs don't stop. They loop, especially when the house goes quiet and I can hear the hum of the fridge, and every little noise feels wrong. 2 days later, an officer came by to follow up. They'd found him. Not only that, turns out the guy had been pretending to be a delivery driver in multiple neighborhoods around the city for over a month. He'd even made fake stickers for his car window to look like he worked for different apps. A couple houses had reported weird encounters. One woman said he got angry when she wouldn't open the door. Another said he tried to follow her inside when she stepped out to grab a drink order. But no one had gotten a clear look at him. Until now. Mr. Harris's footage helped match his face. He had a record. Nothing major before this, just some trespassing charges and suspicious behavior, but it was enough. After that night, I installed cameras around the entire house. Motion sensors, floodlights, the works. Emily's still scared of loud knocks, and honestly, so am I. We don't answer the door unless we know exactly who it is, and I double-check every order I make, every time. I also started telling more people about what happened. Not just friends, but parents at Emily's school, folks at work, even strangers online. Because if he hadn't picked our house that night, it would have been someone else's. And maybe they wouldn't have had time to hide. Or maybe they would have believed him. I still don't understand what he wanted exactly. He didn't steal anything. He didn't say anything specific. It was like he wanted to get in and see what he could get away with. That's what scares me most. The randomness of it. How someone can show up at your door, in broad daylight, with a bag and a fake smile, and turn your whole life upside down. So yeah, this happened. And if you're reading this, please just be careful. Not every knock is what it seems. And not every delivery guy is who he says he is. I was 24 when this happened, living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside of Tulsa. It wasn't a fancy building or anything, just one of those older complexes with thin walls, beige carpets, and a tiny balcony that faced the parking lot. I had moved in 6 months earlier after landing my first real job, working remotely as a customer support rep for an insurance company. Life was quiet, predictable, and I liked it that way. I didn't know many of my neighbors, but the landlord, Mr. Heller, was always polite in a distant clipboard kind of way. I had no reason not to trust the routine of that place until that day. It was a Tuesday, mid-August, and already brutally hot by mid-morning. I remember because I'd opened the sliding door for some air and immediately regretted it. I was getting ready to clock in for my shift around 9:30 a.m. when I saw the note. It was taped neatly to my door, printed on white paper with the apartment complex's logo at the top. The message said the building management would be inspecting all AC units that day, and that someone might enter with a master key if tenants weren't home. I didn't think much of it. It was summer, the AC had been running non-stop, and maintenance checks made sense. Still, something about the note felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. The font looked different from the usual notices Mr. Heller would post, and there were no contact numbers or unit numbers listed. Just a general, "Today we'll be entering apartments to inspect AC units." I remember rereading it twice, then snapping a photo and texting it to a friend with a quick, "Weird, right?" She replied with a shrug emoji and a joke about how landlords never give proper notice anyway. So I let it go. I got back to work, headset on, laptop balanced on the kitchen counter, trying not to overthink it. Around 1:15 p.m. I had just wrapped up a call when I heard my front door open. Not a knock, not a jingle of keys, just the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the lock and the door slowly creaking open. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze, genuinely froze, like my brain short-circuited. I hadn't buzzed anyone in. I wasn't expecting anyone. I didn't even have a package scheduled. I stood perfectly still, listening, and I heard footsteps. Heavy ones. Slow. Then the soft metallic rattle of tools being adjusted. Whoever it was didn't announce themselves. No maintenance. No hello. Just walking. Like he belonged there. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone off the counter and tiptoed to the bathroom. It was the only room with a lock, and even though it was just a flimsy twist lock on a hollow door, it felt like the only thing I could do. I didn't make a sound as I turned the knob and eased it shut behind me. I sat on the edge of the tub, trying not to breathe too loudly, phone clutched to my chest. I could hear him now, walking through the living room, opening a cabinet, then what sounded like the hall closet. He was moving slowly, almost like he was stalling, not checking the AC, just exploring. I called Mr. Heller. I don't even remember what I said exactly. Probably something like, "Hey, there's a guy in my apartment? Said he's maintenance?" My voice was shaking so bad I could barely get the words out. He went silent for a beat, and then he said something that flipped my stomach. "We didn't schedule anything today. I never posted a notice." I remember exactly how he said it. Calm, but confused. "What do you mean someone's inside your unit?" That's when it hit me. The note. It wasn't real. Someone had printed it and taped it up like it was official, just to get in. My chest tightened so hard it felt like I couldn't get a full breath. I whispered to Mr. Heller that I was in the bathroom, hiding, and that the man had used a key. He told me to stay put and that he was calling the police right away. I stayed on the line with him while the footsteps got louder. They passed the bathroom once, then again. I swear I could hear breathing on the other side of the door. Then, and this will never leave me, the doorknob turned. Slowly. Like whoever was out there wanted to see if it was unlocked without making it obvious. My body locked up. I covered my mouth with my hand, trying not to make a single sound. The knob stopped turning after a second, but I didn't hear him walk away. He just stood there. For what felt like forever. After maybe a minute, or 10, I don't even know, the footsteps finally retreated. I heard the front door close, but I didn't move. I couldn't be sure if he'd actually left, or if he was waiting right outside the door, listening. Mr. Heller was still on the phone, asking if I was okay, and I told him I wasn't coming out until the cops were literally inside my apartment. He told me to hang tight, that officers were already on the way. I sat there, drenched in sweat, staring at the bottom of the bathroom door like it might disappear any second. Every little sound in the pipes, every creak from upstairs, felt like it was coming from right outside. I was stuck in that bathroom for what felt like an hour. When the knock finally came, 3 firm knocks followed by, "Tulsa police," I still didn't move. I asked them to slide their badge under the door. I had to see it. One of the officers did exactly that, and when I opened the bathroom door, my legs were trembling so badly I could barely stand. 2 officers were there, one male and one female, both looking serious but calm. They checked every room, every closet, even the balcony, but the guy was long gone. No sign of him. They asked me if anything was missing, but the weirdest part? Nothing had been taken. Not my laptop, not my purse, not even the small stuff. It wasn't about stealing. He wasn't there to rob me. I showed them the fake notice. One of the officers took a photo of it and said he'd seen similar things in break-in reports before. People printing official-looking documents to gain access to homes or apartments. The part that chilled me most, though, was when they asked if I'd ever given a copy of my key to anyone. I hadn't, which meant the guy either had a universal key or, and this part still messes with me, had somehow copied mine. They said it was rare, but not impossible. Maybe he'd followed me before. Maybe he watched me long enough to figure out my routine, slip the key out of my bag at the right moment, copy it, and return it without me ever noticing. Mr. Heller showed up an hour later and was horrified. He changed the lock that same afternoon, apologized about 100 times, and promised to install better security measures for all the units. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept thinking about the way that man had walked in like he belonged there. The calmness, the silence, the way he didn't knock. It was like he expected the place to be empty. Or maybe he expected me to be there. That's the part I can't shake. I keep wondering what would have happened if I hadn't been home, or worse, if I had stepped out of the bathroom and asked who he was. I moved out 2 months later. I couldn't stay there. Even with new locks, even with a security camera Mr. Heller offered to install, the place felt wrong, like it had been tainted. I started triple-checking every lock, every night, and developed this habit of leaving shoes and a fake dog bowl by the door, just in case someone was watching. I still have no idea who that man was. He was never caught, and no one else in the building reported a break-in. It was like I'd been singled out, like he chose me. I try not to dwell on it too much, but sometimes I still wake up thinking I hear keys in the door. I always get up to check. Always. I'm not really the type to share stuff online, but what happened to me last year still messes with my head, and I feel like I need to get it out. I'm 29 now, but back then I had just moved into a small duplex in a quiet neighborhood in the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. It was the kind of street where people wave from their driveways and leave their trash cans out too long. Peaceful, boring, just how I liked it. I lived alone with my cat Nellie and worked remotely as a data analyst. I mostly kept to myself, didn't really know my neighbors beyond the occasional nod. The duplex backed up to a row of overgrown hedges and a chain-link fence that separated my yard from a narrow alley most people didn't even know existed. I'd only used the back door a handful of times since moving in. It led to a tiny, cracked patio and faced directly into that alley. The night everything happened, I had gone out later than usual to pick up a prescription from the pharmacy a few blocks away. It was around 8:45 p.m., already dark, and the lot was mostly empty except for a beat-up red Corolla idling near the entrance. I parked, went in, grabbed my meds, and when I came out maybe 10 minutes later, that same Corolla was still sitting there. A woman was standing just outside the passenger side, facing away from me, talking on her phone, or pretending to. She had on a green puffer jacket and gray leggings, and her hair was long and stringy, like it hadn't been brushed in days. I remember she kept glancing toward me, then back to the lot, pacing in small circles. I didn't think much of it. Maybe waiting for someone, maybe just weird. I got in my car and left. When I pulled into my driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror. No car followed me. No one was behind me. I locked the door, fed Nellie, turned on my usual background noise, a true crime podcast I'd heard 100 times, and started my nighttime routine. I remember checking my phone in bed around 11:40 p.m., and as I was about to plug it in to charge, I heard this noise. It wasn't a knock at first. It was more like a soft scraping sound, like someone running their hand over the back door screen. Nellie had perked up too, her ears twitching toward the kitchen. I held my breath. Then, very clearly, 3 slow knocks. Not the front door, the back door. No one ever knocked back there. I grabbed my phone and tiptoed into the hallway, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I peeked around the corner into the kitchen, and through the frosted glass of the back door, I saw a blurry figure standing there. My first thought was that maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe someone needed help. But then the voice came, muffled through the door. "Hi. Sorry to bother you. My dog ran into your yard. Can I just grab him real quick?" The voice was female. It sounded calm but forced, like she was trying too hard to sound casual. I froze. My yard was fenced in, and the only way in was through the alley or the side gate, which was always locked. I hadn't heard any barking. I hadn't heard a dog at all. I didn't respond at first. I just stood there, staring at the door like my brain couldn't catch up. The porch light was off, but the motion sensor had kicked in, casting enough glow to show her face through the frosted glass. It was the same woman from the pharmacy. That greasy hair, the puffer jacket, the way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other like she couldn't stand still. She didn't look panicked or like someone who just lost a dog. She looked calculated, like she was waiting for me to make a move. I cleared my throat and said through the door, "There's no dog back here. Sorry." She paused. Then she leaned closer to the glass and said, "I swear, I just saw him run through here. He's really small. I just need to check." That's when she grabbed the handle and started jiggling it. Slowly at first, then with more force. I backed away and grabbed my phone. I told her I was calling the police, hoping that would scare her off. But she didn't say anything, didn't curse, didn't plead. She just kept turning the handle like she was trying different angles. It was locked, thank God, but I felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest. I went to the front of the house to wait for dispatch to answer, and by the time I got through and explained what was going on, I went back to check and she was gone. No footsteps, no gate creaking, no fading voice calling for a dog. Just gone. I waited with every light on until the cops showed up about 15 minutes later. They walked around the backyard, took my statement, and told me to call again if she came back. Nothing else they could really do. I barely slept that night. Every creak made me sit up in bed. I think I fell asleep around 5 a.m., and when I woke up again, it was nearly 10. I hadn't even opened the curtains when there was a knock at the front door this time. It was one of the officers from the night before. He said they came back in the morning to do a daylight sweep of the area and had found something in the bushes behind my backyard. I walked out with him, and there it was, half hidden under a pile of dead leaves near the back fence. A large kitchen knife. The handle was black and chipped, and the blade looked old but sharp. The cop said it didn't look like it had been there long. Then he pointed at the ground beneath my bedroom window. There were faint shoe prints in the mud, 2 of them side by side facing the wall. I must have stared at those prints for a solid minute before the weight of it hit me. Someone had been standing there, under my window, watching. Maybe while I was brushing my teeth. Maybe while I was in bed scrolling on my phone. It made me feel sick. The officer asked if I wanted to file a report, and of course I did, but he told me the odds of finding her were slim. No camera footage, no license plate, and the fingerprints on the knife were smudged beyond recognition. I asked if they'd patrol the area more often, and he said he'd make a note of it. But I could tell by the tone of his voice, This wasn't going anywhere. That day, I went straight to Home Depot and bought a new deadbolt for both doors, a motion sensor camera for the backyard, and a floodlight. I even picked up one of those cheap alarm systems that beeps anytime a door or window opens. My brother drove in from Dayton that evening and stayed with me for a few days, just so I could breathe again. I kept thinking about how calm she had sounded, how rehearsed. Like she had said that line before. "My dog ran into your yard." It felt so premeditated. And the fact that she didn't knock on the front door, she went to the back, where no one would hear her. That still gives me chills. I couldn't stop wondering what would have happened if I'd opened the door. Would she have come in alone? Or was someone else waiting in the alley just out of sight? The worst part is, there was no clear motive. Nothing was stolen. I wasn't followed home by car. It felt more like I had been selected, randomly. Like she saw me and decided I looked like someone who lived alone, someone she could catch off guard. That sense of being watched didn't leave me for weeks. Every time I passed a window, I imagined eyes behind the glass. I even dreamed about her, standing there in that same green jacket just beyond the frosted door, holding the knife behind her back. Eventually, life moved on. I got used to the new routines, double-checking locks, scanning the backyard with my phone flashlight before bed, sleeping with one ear open. But I never stopped locking that back door with 2 separate latches, and I never used the alley gate again. A few months later, the duplex next door went up for sale, and I moved out soon after. I couldn't explain it, but the house just felt off after that. Like something had been invited in, even though the door never opened. To this day, I don't know who she was or what she wanted. The cops never followed up, and I never saw her again. Not in person, not on the news, not in any neighborhood alerts. But I think about her every time I drive by a pharmacy at night. Every time I see someone pacing in a parking lot, pretending to talk on the phone. And sometimes I still wake up, heart racing, convinced I heard those same slow, deliberate knocks at the back door. I'm Terrence, I'm 36, and I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor of a small building here in Pasadena. It's one of those older places with wooden exterior stairs and a metal railing that creaks if you lean on it too hard. I've lived here for about 5 years. It's not fancy, but it's quiet, and I know almost all my neighbors by name. At the time this happened, I was working remotely as a freelance graphic designer. Most of my days were spent in front of the computer with coffee, noise-canceling headphones, and my phone always nearby in case a client needed something. Nothing about that morning felt off. It was a normal Thursday, overcast, just chilly enough to want socks indoors. It was around 10:15 a.m. I had just wrapped up a Zoom meeting and was heading to the kitchen to heat up the rest of last night's Chinese food when my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize, local area code. Normally I ignore those, but something told me to pick up. The guy on the other end said he was with a delivery company. He didn't say which one, just that he had a package that needed a signature and he was downstairs. He sounded casual, maybe mid-30s too, slightly raspy voice. I remember thinking he seemed a little impatient, like he'd already knocked and no one came. I didn't hear any knock though. Still, I figured maybe I had my headphones on and missed it. I told him I'd be right down. The way our building is set up, you can't see the street from the apartment unless you're on the balcony. I didn't check, just slipped on a hoodie and headed down the stairs. But the second I stepped outside, I got that weird skin-prickling sensation like something was off. There was no delivery truck, no guy waiting with a clipboard, no movement at all. The street was quiet. For a moment I thought maybe he'd stepped away or was around the corner. But then I heard it. A faint creak. Not from outside, from above me. My apartment. I froze. It wasn't the stairs. It sounded like the floor inside. And then another noise. A thump, like something being knocked over. That was enough to snap me out of it. I bolted back up the stairs, skipping 2 steps at a time, heart hammering so hard I swear it echoed in my ears. When I reached the landing, my front door was open about 6 inches. I always lock it. Always. Even when I go downstairs to take out the trash. My stomach dropped. I pushed the door open slowly, not knowing what the hell I'd find. At first glance, nothing looked wrong. Then I saw a shadow move across the hallway inside. A man was in my apartment. Tall, wearing a black hoodie, hunched over my backpack on the kitchen chair, rummaging through it like he knew exactly what he was looking for. And then he turned, and we locked eyes. For a second, neither of us moved. The moment we made eye contact, something in him shifted. His posture stiffened, and he immediately reached into his waistband. That's when I saw the knife. It wasn't huge, but it was the kind of blade you don't mistake for anything else. Silver with a worn, dark handle, like it had seen way too many pockets. I didn't even have time to think. Instinct just kicked in. I lunged forward before he could move, slammed my shoulder into his chest, and shoved him back. He stumbled, hitting the edge of the kitchen table hard. The whole table skidded, and one of the chairs tipped over with a loud crack. It bought me maybe 2 seconds. I ran straight for the balcony. It was my only option. The front door was behind him now. I yanked the sliding door open and stepped outside, yelling at the top of my lungs, "Help! Somebody call the cops!" I must have screamed it 3 or 4 times. I could hear the guy swearing behind me, loud and angry. I turned and locked the balcony door just in time to see him rushing toward it. He slammed his shoulder into the glass, but thankfully, it held. He didn't try again. Instead, he spun around, probably realizing he needed to get the hell out before someone actually responded. And someone did. My neighbor from across the parking lot, Carlos, popped his head out from his window and shouted, "What's going on?" I yelled back, trying to explain. Probably wasn't even coherent, just a mix of break in, knife, call 911. Carlos ducked back inside, and within what felt like 30 seconds I heard sirens in the distance. Meanwhile, I could hear the intruder opening drawers again, like he was grabbing whatever he could before leaving. I didn't dare open the door again. I just stayed there on the balcony, heart pounding, staring through the glass, and listening to every sound he made inside my place. A minute later, the apartment went quiet. I didn't know if he was gone or hiding. But when I cracked the sliding door just an inch and leaned in, I heard the front door click shut. I waited a few seconds, then pushed it open and stepped inside. My whole body was shaking. The kitchen was a mess. Drawers pulled out, cabinets open, stuff scattered across the floor. My bag was gone. So was my laptop. I peeked out the front door just in time to see 2 officers rushing up the stairs. I flagged them down and pointed toward the street, trying to explain what happened, voice cracking with adrenaline. One of them took off running. The other stayed with me, asking a million questions I could barely answer. About 10 minutes later, the officer who ran out came back, panting, and gave the other cop a quick nod. They got him. 2 blocks away, trying to cut through someone's backyard. Apparently, he ditched the bag in a recycling bin, and they were able to recover almost everything, except my wallet, which he must have pocketed. Turns out, this guy had been targeting small buildings like mine across the area for weeks. He used spoofed numbers and fake delivery calls to lure people out of their apartments for just long enough to sneak inside. He didn't kick doors in. He was fast, quiet, and calculated. The cop said I was lucky to catch him in the act, and even luckier to not get stabbed. That part haunted me more than I expected. For days afterward, I kept replaying the moment he reached for the knife. What if I had hesitated? What if the glass had shattered? What if I hadn't heard the sound from upstairs? My apartment, which used to feel like a safe little space, suddenly felt exposed. Every creak made me jump. I replaced the lock the next day with a smart deadbolt, added a camera to the balcony, and even started keeping something heavy by the bed, just in case. It sounds paranoid, I know, but after something like that, your sense of normal changes. People always talk about how scary it must be to get mugged or robbed in the street, but there's something way worse about it happening in your home. That's supposed to be your safe zone. That's where your memories are, your comfort, your privacy. To have someone violate that space while you're just a few feet away, it messes with your head. Even now, months later, I still double-check the lock every time I leave, even if it's just to take out the trash. Anyway, I thought I'd share this here because I know a lot of people scroll past weird delivery calls or trust too easily when someone sounds professional. Don't. If something feels off, it probably is. If I hadn't heard that sound upstairs, I don't even want to think about how this story could have ended. I still don't understand how he got the number tied to my apartment, or how he spoofed it to sound so legit. But one thing's for sure, I'll never answer a delivery call the same way again. I'm not the type of person who usually shares stuff online, but what happened to me last fall still keeps me up at night, and I guess writing it out might help me make some sense of it. My name's Rachel, I'm 30, and I had just moved into a small single-level house in Northern Oregon. Nothing fancy, just a quiet little rental on the edge of town. I'd just gotten out of a long-term relationship and needed a fresh start. I work remotely as a graphic designer, so being alone all day never really bothered me. In fact, I liked the silence. Or at least I did. The house was simple, like I said. One floor, no second story, no basement. But it had this attic hatch in the hallway ceiling, a small square with a wooden frame. No ladder attached. I remember the landlord telling me during the walkthrough that the space above was just a crawl space for insulation and vents. No room for storage, trust me, he laughed. I didn't think twice about it at the time. I moved in mid-September, and for the first couple of weeks, everything was totally normal. I spent my days working at the kitchen table, streaming podcasts, trying new recipes at night, just enjoying the peace and quiet. The first time I heard it, I thought it was my imagination. I had stayed up late watching a dumb reality show on my laptop, and just as I was turning everything off to go to bed, I heard what sounded like a dull thump from above. Not like something fell. It was softer, more like a footstep. Then another. I froze. The kind of stillness where even your breath feels too loud. It was past midnight, and I remember staring up at the ceiling like an idiot, waiting for it to happen again. But nothing else came. Eventually, I convinced myself it was the house settling. Or maybe a raccoon on the roof. That made more sense than someone walking around in a crawl space, right? But over the next few nights, I kept hearing it. Not every night. Just enough to mess with my head. Always late, always faint. Always the same slow, deliberate pacing above my hallway. I even stood on a chair once with a flashlight, staring at that ugly attic hatch, waiting to hear it again. But as soon as I was up there, of course, silence. I felt ridiculous. I told myself it was wind, or maybe the heating ducts expanding or whatever houses do. Still, I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked, which I never used to do. Just a weird gut feeling I couldn't shake. About a week later, I noticed something strange in the kitchen. It was a Saturday morning, and I went to make coffee like usual. I walked in and saw two of the drawers halfway open. Not wide, just pulled out enough to notice. One had a spatula sticking out at a weird angle. I could have sworn I closed everything the night before. I'm not obsessive, but I'm not messy either. I stood there for a second, staring at them like maybe they'd moved on their own. Then I laughed at myself, pushed them shut, and chalked it up to being tired or distracted. But then I opened the fridge and saw something else. A leftover container of pasta was gone. Just gone. It wasn't like me to eat it and forget. I even texted a friend to joke that I was sleep eating. But it kept happening. Little things. A banana missing. A spoon left in the sink that I know I didn't use. Drawers open again, and every time I tried to rationalize it. I even Googled early signs of memory loss at one point. It was starting to freak me out. So I called maintenance to come check out the attic just in case. I didn't say I thought someone was up there. I just said I kept hearing sounds and was wondering if there was maybe an animal or a busted vent. The guy came out the next morning, popped open the hatch, shined his flashlight in, and laughed. "No way a person could fit up there," he said. "It's like 18 inches tall, just insulation and dust." He sealed it back up, gave me a look like I was wasting his time, and left. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just laid there, eyes wide open in the dark, staring at the ceiling and listening for anything. It was dead quiet. No footsteps, no weird noises. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. So the next day, I did something that felt kind of stupid at the time. I went to Target and bought one of those cheap baby monitors. Audio only, no video. I had to rig it with duct tape to hang it near the attic hatch, facing upward, but it worked. I plugged the receiver in next to my bed, put on some rain sounds to help me relax, and tried to sleep. And around 3:12 a.m., I heard it. The faintest creak. Then another. Then something else. A whisper. Not words I could make out. More like someone murmuring to themselves, low and hoarse. I sat up straight in bed, heart pounding, staring at the monitor like it might burst into flames. The sounds lasted maybe 30 seconds, then silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just laid there, frozen, clutching a pillow and listening to that grainy static, hoping it wouldn't come back. In the morning, I called the police. The officers showed up that afternoon. 2 of them. One older guy named Officer Grant, and a younger one who didn't say much. I told them everything. The footsteps, the missing food, the drawers, the baby monitor. I think I sounded half crazy, but Officer Grant took it seriously. He asked if I had the monitor audio recorded. I didn't, which I regretted, but he said they'd take a look anyway. They brought a ladder from their cruiser, pulled the attic hatch open, and one of them climbed up with a flashlight while the other stayed with me in the hallway. I stood there hugging myself, listening to that hollow silence above us. About 2 minutes later, the one in the attic called down, "You're gonna want to see this." Officer Grant climbed up next. I followed to the base of the ladder but didn't go up. I heard them talking in low voices, some rustling. Then Grant leaned down through the hatch and said, "Someone's been living up here." I felt everything drop out of me, like my bones turned to water. He said there was a sleeping bag, crumpled food wrappers, and a small knife tucked into the insulation. "You're lucky," he added. "Whoever it was probably only came down when you were sleeping or out. This could have gone a lot worse. They came down and did a sweep of the house, but whoever had been up there was long gone. No signs of forced entry until they checked outside. In the back of the house, hidden behind the hedge, one of the exterior vents had been broken open. Just wide enough for someone skinny to climb in. Probably homeless, they guessed. Or someone just looking for a place to crash without being noticed. But the whispering, the footsteps? That didn't sound like someone just crashing to me. It felt intentional, like whoever was up there wanted to be heard, just not seen. That same night, I packed a suitcase and went to stay with my cousin across town. I didn't sleep for 2 days. I kept thinking about how long they'd been up there, how many nights I cooked dinner, watched shows, sang in the kitchen, all while someone was lying just a few feet above me, listening. I moved out a week later. Didn't even wait for the lease to end. I still don't know who they were or how long it had been going on. The cops never followed up, and honestly, I didn't want to know. I just wanted out. It's been almost a year, and to this day, I can't hear footsteps above me without freezing. I always look up,